it's Mandy. Welcome to my channel. So I have realized that I've been saying one thing, and then when it actually comes to managing my rental properties, I've been doing another thing. And that thing is letting tenants do their own repairs. When I took over my dad's rental properties, he had been letting people do whatever repairs they wanted themselves, and he would just take the cost of the materials out of their rent. So for example, if someone's rent was $450 and they wanted to paint their front porch and it cost them $50 to buy the paint, then when it came time to pay their rent, they would just hand in $400 plus that $50 receipt. And I guess that worked out really well for my dad because he has done that from the very beginning of having rental properties, and he had continued to do that for 20 years. Now when I took over, I said, okay, no more of this. I'm not going to let tenants do their own repairs. I want all the repairs to be done professionally, and also I just don't even feel like it's the tenant's responsibility to do repairs. What are they paying me for? And I just thought, I'm going to do this exactly right, by the book. Tenants aren't doing any repairs. But all of the properties I took over from my dad, the tenants were all used to doing their own repairs. And a lot of them didn't even ask to be reimbursed. They would just go do their own repair, and I'll give you a really awesome example of that. This is probably the best example that I have. But last year, for the first time, I did property inspections. It's only been 2-3 years since I've taken over managing my dad's properties, and last year was the first year that I went and inspected every property. I wanted to do that just because there were some properties I had never even seen, some tenants I had never even met, and I wanted to know the condition of the larger maintenance items like the roofs and flooring, that kind of thing, so that I could budget for down the road. So the first house that I went to inspect, the tenant had lived in that house for about 12 years. I never met him, but I knew he was a great tenant because he paid his rent early every single month. And when I walk into the house was clean, everything looked nice and in good condition. The house was older, it needed to be remodeled, but that's not the tenant's fault. And yeah, he and his wife were just super, super nice. And so he shows me around the house, and we get to the bathroom, and he says, "Now, I hope you don't mind, but I knew your family had a lot going on and we just didn't want to bother you, but the toilet seal had gone bad and started to leak, and we didn't realize it until the floor was already starting to get mushy. So we just, took the toilet off, replaced that seal ourselves, and then we tore up the bathroom floor, put down new plywood, and put down new flooring." And guys, that floor looked amazing. Like, it looked better than when I hired professional floorer to come in and do flooring. And he didn't ask me to reimburse him for any of that. Like, he paid for all that himself. And I was like, no, I don't mind. Oh my gosh, that looks amazing. Like, thank you. And right then I knew I was never going up on his rent because I wanted to make sure and keep that tenant forever. And so then I inspect all the other houses, and the tenants show me the things that they've done. Like, one lady refinished the hardwood floor, and I guess those are like the really big ones. I mean, other people just painted some things and stuff like that. And I start to be leaning more and more towards letting the tenants do their own repairs, because these tenants who had really put time and money and effort into their house, these are the houses that are the nicest and the cleanest, and the tenants are really treating the houses as their own. And that's the kind of tenant I want. I want a tenant who treats the house like they own the house themselves, and I want them to be happy, and I want them to want to stay there, So I started leaning more and more towards letting the tenants do their own repairs. Now, a house that I recently purchased, it has a similar problem where the toilet seal went bad and then the flooring needs replaced in the bathroom. The toilet seal went bad before I even purchased the property. It's already been replaced, so the toilet is no longer leaking, but the landlord who replaced the toilet seal didn't replace the flooring. And so the flooring's still kind of a little bit mushy there, and it needs to be replaced. I have offered to call a contractor and get a contractor to come out and replace that flooring. But the tenant used to be a contractor himself, and he just doesn't feel comfortable having someone else do it. He says he knows what kind of work gets done around here. And I mean, he is right in a way. There are good contractors, but unfortunately there's a lot of people who just don't put a lot of pride into their work in this area. And he says, you know, I can save you the money and I can do a better job than anyone you would hire anyway. So you just pay for the materials and I'll do it for you know, no cost for the labor. And honestly, that sounds great to me, because they've lived in that house for going on 10 years. He already showed me a whole bunch of other stuff he's done, and he's just taken really good care of the property. I know that he'll do an excellent job. I've actually, other people who found out that he rents from me told me, oh, what a great carpenter he used to be. So I know that the job will get done and it'll be great, and it'll save me money as well. So basically, when a tenant calls me or texts me and asks me, hey, can I do this repair job? I just weigh the pros and the cons, and I think, you know, what's the worst case scenario? How badly can they mess this up? And then I think, can I live with that worst case scenario if it happens? And usually the answer is yes. I mean, the bathroom floor is already ruined. If he even semi knows what he's doing, he's not gonna mess it up any worse than it already is messed up. So normally I say yes. Now, if it's an electrical thing, which I've never even had this come up, nobody's asked me to do any electrical work on their own houses. I don't think most tenants would feel comfortable with that. But if it's a major thing, or if it's electrical, of course I wanna get a licensed professional out there, because I don't want to open myself up to any unnecessary liability. But if it's just an aesthetic thing, a thing that will make the tenant embrace the house more and like the house more as their own and be happier to live there, and it also adds value, I am happy to let them do that. Now, the one thing that I do stick to my guns on, and I do not reimburse tenants for, is paint. I think painting is something everyone thinks that they can do, but it's actually a lot harder than they think once they get into it, and it's a lot bigger job than most people expect. So the paint jobs that I've seen from tenants, I just really haven't been impressed with, and I've had to either repaint myself or pay someone to come out and repaint. For example, they usually just go around the TVs and around the toilets. They don't do a very thorough job of making sure the walls get completely painted, and also they're not really that good at cutting in their, what do you call, I don't know, like cutting in the corners, so they get paint on the ceiling, and then instead of just having to paint the wall, if I want it to look really nice, I have to paint the ceiling too. So I will usually tell tenants that they can paint, but I won't pay for the paint. My whole point for making this video is not to try to convince you to let your tenants do their own repairs. I think probably best practice is to not let tenants do repairs, and if that's what you choose to do, I think you're very smart for choosing that. But I just wanted to share with you guys that that's really not how I've been doing it, and it actually has been working out really well for me. It's not to say that I don't expect a tenant to do a crappy job someday down the road, but you know what? I've paid a lot of licensed professionals to do crappy jobs as well. So I think you just win some and you lose some. Right now, most of my tenants who do their own repairs and they're actually adding value to the properties, those are most of my favorite tenants. My best tenants are up there in that group. So I've just been happy with how it's been working out, and I wanted to share that with you guys. Anyway, see you next time. Bye.